I can remember one of the first eldership meetings I was a part of as a youth pastor. I was just a couple months on the job, green behind the ears, and I was so excited to be learning about the church and what it looks like to lead in the church. And so to be a part of this eldership team meeting was a big deal. At this particular eldership meeting, the big issue on the agenda was the need for more elders. You see, our church was growing, and with our growing church, there was more issues and more needs that the elders were having to meet. And so they began to discuss who would be able to join our team of elders. And as this discussion started, one of the elders pulled out the church directory, and we began flipping through all the pictures, looking at the names. And as we looked at names, also names began to fly around the room and discussion followed. And to be honest, I sat back in shock. I was actually really scared. Not because we use a church directory, not because we were throwing out names, but because the discussion wasn't focused on the qualifications of a leader found in 1 Timothy chapter 3 or Titus chapter 1. No one was asking about a person's character. No one was asking about their relationship with Jesus. Sadly, we were asking very surface level questions. The questions we were asking were, are they too busy farming to visit people? Would they have time to serve communion? How long have they come to our church? And most importantly, do they give money to our church? These were the qualifications that our church was using to decide if people were fit to lead the church as an elder. And that experience has been burned into my memory, and really for all the wrong reasons. You see, as we talk about developing leaders in the church, we have to spend some time thinking about the important task of developing leaders for our church leadership teams, whether that's a church leadership board, an elder team, or a council, however you describe it. One of the most important and fruitful things we can do as leaders is spend time developing future leaders who are biblically qualified to lead in our churches, so that we're not left flipping through our church directories looking for people who have a heartbeat, looking for people who have extra time or have given money to our church, and saying that this makes them qualified to serve as leaders. Let me be blunt, and I say this out of a deep love for you, your church, and a desire to see your church thrive. If this is how you decide who will be a leader in your church, you are asking for some serious problems in the future. You see, we as churches and as leaders need to raise the leadership bar in our church to be in line with the biblical qualifications for a leader. All right? We have to raise that bar. Now, we don't want to go above those qualifications. That's legalism. We don't want to go below those qualifications. That's leadership malpractice. This is important. Hear me out. This is important. Because who we put in leadership in the church will have a direct effect on the health and mission of our local churches. Let me say that again. Who we put in leadership in our church will have a direct effect on the health and mission of our local churches. So, let's talk about developing leaders for our church leadership teams. When we develop leaders for our church leadership teams, we are still focused on the head, the heart, and the hands. And we're still going to use our 3 development components, all right? Cohorts, hands-on leadership experience, and one-on-one coaching. Those aren't changing. Those are our foundation that we are going to build off of here. But we're going to customize our training to fit the need of leaders for our leadership teams. We're going to customize our training so that we can see leaders develop that will, God willing, meet the biblical qualifications for church leadership. And that's where we must customize our process. So, what are some things that you guys need to think through as you think through customizing your leadership development process for a leadership team leader? A couple of things here for you. Number 1, you need to have clear convictions around the qualifications. Clear convictions around the qualifications. In 1 Timothy 3 and Titus 1, we're given some clear qualifications for leadership in the church. As churches, our work is to develop some clear convictions around how we apply those qualifications to our church leadership team members and potential leaders. All right, you have to think through these. So, for instance, what does it look like for someone to be the husband of one wife? That's a qualification found in 1 Timothy and Titus. What does it look like for someone to be able to teach? What does it look like for them to be not be a new convert? We could go through each and every qualification found in 1 Timothy 3 and Titus 1 and ask those questions. So the question is, how do you apply each of these qualifications in leadership in your church? So for example, could someone who was divorced and remarried before becoming a Christian serve on your leadership team? Or does that mean they're no longer a husband of one wife? Or How long do you have to be a Christian before you're no longer considered a new convert? See, if you haven't thought through those, you're not sure how you're going to apply them to your church leadership team. So we need to clearly, as leaders, clearly write out what these qualifications look like in a leader. Why is this important for us to do? Because it sets up a leadership standard for our churches. It helps us know who we're looking to develop or what we're looking to develop in potential leaders. So, number one, clear qualifications or clear convictions around qualifications. Number two, we need to know what is foundational. We need to know what is foundational. As you think through developing leaders for your leadership team, you need to think about what is foundational. What is the head, heart, and hand skills that you want every leader in your leadership team to possess? So what theology must they know as a leader on the leadership team? Or what culture do you want them to embrace? How do you want them to internalize the mission and vision of your church? Or what's the philosophy of ministry that your church practices, and how can they embrace that? Whatever it is, these will be foundational things that you'll want every potential leader to know and grow in. So what are those for your church? You've already thought through some of them broadly, but more focused in on leadership team members, what are those things? Number three is skills. What skills will a potential leader need to be able to grow into? An example of this is in our church, every elder is expected to be able to teach. Now that might look like preaching on a Sunday, or it could be teaching in smaller settings, but if that's the expectation we have for all our elders, then it means that part of our leadership development process for an elder is walking alongside of them and developing the ability and skill of teaching. So for your context, what are the skills that you want every leadership team member to be able to possess and carry out? Number four, you need to understand that this is going to take some time. All right, this is the biggest thing for you to understand. Is as you develop leaders for a leadership team, it's going to take time. We're not talking a couple weeks. We're not even talking a couple months. Think a year or longer. Why is that? Because this is critical to the church health. When I planted a church, something I constantly heard was, don't appoint elders too quickly. You wait, and when you think you waited long enough, wait some more. Why? Because if you put someone in a place of leadership who isn't ready, whose character isn't fully known, it could cause a massive headache for you and deep pain for your church. You see, here's the thing about the biblical qualifications of a leader for the church. They aren't focused on ability, but on character. And the only way to see someone's character, someone's true character, is over a long period of time where you are in a relationship with them. So, give yourself time. It's good to have a start date, but don't promise a completion date. It's good to invite people into a leadership promise or into a leadership process, but don't promise them a leadership position. Walk with them over a period of time and develop them, work on their character, see them grow, see them discipled so that they can potentially move into a leadership position. It's gonna take time, and that's okay. Practically speaking, if we know this process is going to take time, it means that we must always be thinking ahead. This is especially true if you know that every few years you're going to need a new team member because of term limits in your church. What that means for you is you're going to want to have an ongoing developmental process for your leadership team so that when the time comes, you don't have an empty bench, but you have people on your bench that you can bring into the leadership game in your church. It's going to take time. Here's the thing. Who we place around our leadership table will have a direct effect on the health of our churches. Investing in developing leaders who reflect the biblical qualifications of a leader within our church is one of the best investments you and I can make as leaders. It is one of the best investments we can make. So, I'm excited that you want to make this investment. This wraps up our time together. We have spent 6 weeks together talking through leadership development. We have looked at healthy leaders, or what healthy leaders are. We've looked at why leadership development is important. We've looked at how to know what kind of leaders you're going to need to develop. We've looked at how to develop a basic plan for leadership development. And we've talked through the components of where we develop leaders. Finally, we've talked about the need to invest in a future board, council, or elders for our churches. Now, as leadership teams, it's time to get your hands dirty. It's time to start or continue the exciting but also hard work of developing leaders. And I want to remind you one last time that this is an investment that's worth it. Healthy leaders are a key to healthy churches.